guys like to stand up when you?
Yes.
Okay, that's better, right?
Okay.
Does anyone have any more questions for Mark on that one topic that you'd like to ask him about?
Why don't we do it that way? We'll go sort of through one at a time.
That's a good idea, okay.
Listen up.
I'm sorry.
This would be for Mark. Had you been elected last fall on your first run against Langevin, can you tell us how you would have voted on stimulus, cap and trade, and some of the other big ticket items, and why?
Absolutely. The stimulus was a stupid idea that had no chance of working, and I will offer as evidence of that fact the fact that the $700 billion in spending was authorized, and less than 30% of that has been used so far. They can't even figure out what to do with it, and they know nothing's going to happen. One of the worst things.
Don't forget, we got 6 jobs.
Well, that's right. Rhode Island did get 6 jobs out of it. Right? Yes. But the problem is the inequities of trying to do anything that big. The reason that the capitalist system works is because each of us goes out and makes decisions based on our own self-interest. And you know your self-interest better than any committee of any size ever could. And when all of a sudden the committee is the size of the U.S. government, it just takes forever to make a bad decision. So that's the problem with that. We should never have been in the business of bailing out banks. If banks fail, new banks come up, and there's plenty of protections in law for the individual people holding. The cap and trade bill was an absolute atrocity. It is one of the defining differences between myself and my opponent. As I was telling someone here tonight, I literally wrote him a letter on the eve of that vote saying, you can't possibly vote for this dog. If you do, you've got to know that we'll be talking about it later, because what have you done? And there was this talk at the time about it having to do somehow with carbon emissions and pollution control and something like that, which is utter and absolute baloney.
It's freaking cold outside.
Well, it's about taking an extra $4,000 or $5,000 per year out of your pockets. And that's your money, and what's the government going to do with it? They're going to have another stimulus plan or some other equally senseless thing that some large committee does. We need smaller government, not bigger government. No to the stimulus, no to the cap and trade. By and large, no to everything that Mr. Landry has voted yes for.
Hello, Mark. Mark, can you testing 1, 2? Hey, Mark, how you doing? I got a question about Ron Paul Republicans and how Lindsey Graham came out just recently saying that he's never going to allow Ron Paul Republicans to take over the party and infiltrate it and everything else. Well, to me, Ron Paul is the epitome of a true Republican, a conservative. This man has come out in 2002, he predicted this housing crisis. In 2003, he predicted that the dollar would eventually erode itself into nothingness if we continue on this path. It hasn't been $700 billion worth of stimulus. We forget there was another stimulus bill that went on by the Republican Party before that. So we're talking about $1.6 trillion, $7 trillion. This has been flagrantly done by what we consider neoconservatives. These are the people that we're looking at right now, and these neoconservatives stand for a broader spectrum of government that eclipses outside of the United States. They don't truly believe in the sovereignty of this country. Where do you stand on protecting the sovereignty of this country, and not just to say the country, but the state also?
The whole concept of our government was based on sovereignty. We are each individuals, we are sovereign individuals. We create groups, states that are sovereign, and the United States of America, which is sovereign around the world. We need to preserve and protect that sovereignty. Without it, then all of a sudden, all of the individual choices that we make get totally diluted. Ron Paul, is called a Republican, a Libertarian, an ultra-conservative. He is probably all of those things. We have to get over some of the political tags that are being applied to people. What we have are two options in leading our state and our nation. We can either have smaller government that costs less and therefore leaves more money in your pockets, or we can make the decision to have larger government that use its institutional bulk to somehow reach in and touch everybody during their their day-to-day existence. I play for the first team, not the second team. Ron Paul plays for that first team. There are lots of us that do. Now, let's not worry too much about whether we are Republicans or Democrats, or whether we are the moderate party, or the Greens, or the Cool Moose, or any other one you can think of. The position that I espouse is the position that represents most of the people in this state and most of the people in this nation, whatever they call themselves. If I'm going to win this seat, I'm going to need a very large number of good and true Democrats, like Bobby DiPaggio, who's right here, to step up and say, I've looked at both of these guys, and that's the guy I want. And without that, I'm not going to have the seat, and I'm not going to be able to go out and start to preach these sermons in Washington where they need to be preached. Thank you, Tom.
Hello, how are you today? I got a question for you. Where do you stand on repealing the NAFTA bill and realizing what NAFTA has done to this country? And to this, just the state alone?
This is another one for me? This is turning into a security show. These guys that decided me are going to get mad here in a minute. I think that that NAFTA is an instance where what conceptually might have had some value has failed in execution. And the thing we have to understand is that if we are going to be a capitalist society in a global economy, that we have to find ways to deal with countries all over the world. Without that, we won't have places to sell our stuff and to get the best deals on other stuff that we need. The fact of the matter is that the NAFTA treaty has been implemented terribly poorly, in my opinion, and probably needs to be revisited. The other thing that we need to do is exactly what Joe Trillo said needs to happen in Rhode Island, needs to happen at a national level. We have to make ourselves business friendly. And if we do that, we will go back to a point in time where the productive capacity of the United States of America is unparalleled any place in the world, and therefore dominates the world almost no matter what the terms of treaties like that are. And we need to do both things. But the issue of NAFTA as a concept is one we need to consider, because we've got to figure out how we're going to live in a global society. But what's been done today puts America at a disadvantage to its two neighbors, and therefore obviously has to be revisited and changed.